Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Force 5. I'm Ken Plume. I'm the host of Force 5. It's a show where I have a very special guest on, and we talk about their five favorite Star Wars collectibles in their collection, and probably a lot of other stuff. We talk about a lot of, who knows? Who knows what is going to be discussed about their collections, collecting. I don't know. We'll see, because we have a wonderful guest on right now, senior product designer for Hasbro, and just an incredible person, an incredible creator, an incredible collector. I'm sure we'll find out. Emily Cantelupe, welcome to the show.
Hi, hello. So glad to join for my Force 5. And so good to meet you, Ken.
And a pleasure as well. We're going to dive all the way back. So we're going to talk about the only thing that's important right now, which is have you completed Zelda Tears of the Kingdom completely?
Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Oh my gosh, you got me here because I'm complete, like 100% through Breath of the Wild and like 50% through Tears of the Kingdom. But other video games distracted me. There's so many good ones out right now that I was
We'll
hitting
bring it. We'll
so
bring it in.
many.
So it's all just a Zelda conversation right now.
Yes. Yes,
Uh,
absolutely. It's actually the only thing I have a tattoo of, Zelda. So there we go. True devotee for sure. Still one to finish over the holidays.
now, how do you? And because we'll get to this, how do you approach those open world type games? Are you all about the
Oh my gosh.
exploration?
I'm like one of these miserable completionist people. So I will
Oh,
do every
hello.
side quest and love it
Here
and
as
love
well.
it. Like I will find every chicken. I will go hunt
Every
every
Korok seed.
Deku nut, every seed, every Deku seed. I just love it. I just love like completing my way through the world. I will say one of the Star Wars games, I think it was Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Like I almost completed, I'm like 98%, and then one quest had like a known error, and that had me online like, why can't I complete this bounty hunt? What's going on?
The only patch they need to do. Why aren't they
Come
fixing
on.
this?
It's probably fixed by now. I need to go back and loop up my completionism of that game. But yeah, I just love open world. I love story in video games. I love open worlds to explore. And I have loved the recent Star Wars games. They've been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, just that idea of it going around, talking about just design as a thing. That idea
Oh
that
yeah.
no matter where you turn, speaking of like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, there's something visually that catches your eye enough to go, I want to go explore that.
Absolutely. Take me on
I
this
want to
hero's
go to there.
journey. Show me every land. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it.
What is the aspect of those games that you don't like
That I don't
particularly?
like, that I don't like. I I guess for video games, like when I came to Tears of the Kingdom, I love both of them, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. I wanted a little more differentiation in the temples, the shrines, but that's okay. Like there are so many more. Each one's just a little simpler. And so I mean it's not a hard critique, but
Yeah, you don't get the
I love.
novelty dungeons as much as you would get in
Yeah, I
classic
mean, I
Zelda.
grew up with Ocarina of Time, and like each temple is just wildly different in that. So I have a little bit of nostalgia for that type of temple. But in
To
any
be fair,
case,
there
they
aren't
built
like
such a
400
bigger
of them, so
world.
I can
There
understand
are
the
so
mix.
many. Like they definitely hit us with the quantity. So there are so many to find, and I did have a really fun time finding everyone in Breath of the Wild. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I got Breath of the Wild was a bad time for 100%ing, because then I also decided, well, since I'm already around and doing things, and it's a nice sort of multitasking thing where I can and do other work but also sort of have this thing
Hmm.
going. So can I max out the inventory on every item? Is that a thing that I can do? Can I just add
Oh my
100%
gosh.
item inventory? It
I'm
got
very guilty too in video games of like saving the best items because I'm like, I gotta save that forever and then never using them.
yeah. Or the Master Sword, which is gonna come back. It's like I don't want to use that. I
I
wanna
can't use that,
gotta have that for when I do the thing I'll never do, which is, finishing the
right?
game again.
And then you end up like playing the whole game through with the weak items and just having a bag full of all of the
Like the
best stuff
Master
you never
Shield. I'll
touched.
never, because you have to go reforge that to fix it. It's like, no, I just
Right?
won't use it. I don't need to. That's not a thing I need
I
to
don't
do.
need to. I can just use like wooden sticks forever, right? And make it
Yeah.
all the way through this game.
Or I have I have 50 of these other shields that I've accumulated that, they're
Yeah.
disposable. They're not the cool shield. I'm not going to use that.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
so going back as far as you can remember, what was the sort of the first thing in the entertainment sphere that like I like this enough that I want objects of this thing?
Ooh, sure. Well, I guess my pop culture origin is I have an awesome nerd dad. So I definitely grew up experiencing the best, like awesome movies and adventure films with my dad. And I say often to people as well, like I pretty much learning to read, finished C Spot Run, and my dad was like, "Here's The Hobbit." I wasn't ready for it, but I muscled my way through The Hobbit. And then I would pick like every year and try again at the Lord of the Rings books. And okay, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to conquer it until I finally did. And I just loved sharing like that Lord of the Rings universe with my dad. But, he was also like showing me like original trilogy Star Wars and the Indiana Jones movies and even scared, like I loved to be scared. I loved scary stuff like Poltergeist and like sitting and watching X-Files, but then I was like so scared, but I was so like in it. So
What do we
definitely
think? Your
like
father
watching.
sounds like he's of the generation that we had stuff that was pre PG-13 that
Oh yeah,
kids
it
should
was
not have been
probably not age
watching.
appropriate, and I might have had some nightmares, but then I would just run downstairs to keep watching those amazing movies with dad. So definitely product of a nerd father. I love the way that like stuff like Star Wars also carries through families. I think at the time when I was younger, I was still being gifted lots of girls' toys. I absolutely was like frontline trend of Beanie Babies. And so I had like the first whole generation that got really rare, but I cut all of their little tags off. And I feel
So,
like by
so you were
second
a
wave,
beanie opener,
like a
essentially.
beanie opener. But then like by second wave, like it was going around talks that they were so rare. And so by like maybe second wave of Beanie Babies time, I was like, oh, I'm supposed. These are like that. What's a collectible? Like, what does it mean for it to be a collectible? I have to protect it. So I would get all of these little heart-shaped tag protectors
Oh, the
for
little
all of the
plastic,
Beanie
the
Babies.
vinyl.
Yeah, and protect them. And then I just kept getting more. And I feel like that was maybe like my first experience with just full on collection system, like check them all off, get everyone, like serious collecting through the Beanie Baby phase. But
Now,
yeah,
were you
they
collecting in
weren't
a
quite.
community at that point as well? Because that was sort of the early
No,
days of the internet and a lot of people
it was,
sharing
yeah, it was
information
very
about
early
that.
internet. So the internet info would get out, like keep your Beanie Babies safe, collect them so carefully. And I would walk down to a place near me called the Bear Shop, and I would just get the latest Beanie Baby that they had on their little beanie
There's
shelf.
a store in
So
Iowa that you can call on the phone and they'll ship.
ah, don't get me started again. I can't go down this path again, Ken.
Do you still have any of them? Have you kept any that you had as a
We
kid?
do. I actually just went to my parents' house and found them and was like lining them all up, like, oh, I had that Princess Di bear. It was so fun. But yeah, Beanie Babies, it was probably my first serious, like I'm gonna learn to collect these and care for them. But yeah, I often would like go to they weren't like buying me the boys' toys as much when I was younger. So I would go to my mom's best friend had a son and he had all of the Kenner Star Wars stuff. And like the big major like Lego systems, like Lego Castle. And he had like, the Bantha and the Falcon and all some of the Kenner greats and the bigger items. So I would go over there and I would like play with the Star Wars toys there and just loved them. I think those couple Bantha and Falcon were just original like oh my god, the toys bring the movie to life moments
Now,
for
were these
me.
hand-me-downs that he had?
They might have been. They might have been. I'll have to ask.
Is he still a collector? Are you still in contact with him? Does he still have his collection of Kenner stuff?
He's sadly no longer with us, but
Oh,
I think his
sorry.
family might have his stuff. But yeah, we all cherish the memory, and it was always a good time going over to play with the kinds of toys that he had.
Do you remember the first one that you encountered from that cache, that collection, that really like I like this and I would like to have one of these that I don't have to go visit?
It had to be Falcon. And I mean, years later to have been able to work with and kind of train under Mark Boudreau, the principal designer who built that original Falcon, was incredible. He's such a wealth of knowledge and he was such an inspiration to the whole design team. So that was an incredible thing to be able to work with him too.
Is there anything that from the interactions, that sort of lessons that you would say were fundamental that you learned from him?
Fundamental. I learned a lot while I was on. I developed the majority of the Mission Fleet line, as well as my work on the vintage collection. So while I was working on Mission Fleet, it was actually a line split between myself and Mark, and got to see a lot of like how he builds a spec package, a specification package, how he builds and develops like the input for a vehicle. And so that was a really fun time to train with him. Actually, I still have on my shelf over here some of the bigger. Eventually, I got to work on the Razor Crest and the Boba Fett starship there. Just like carrying on sort of some of the bigger mission fleet items. It was good learning. I think like when we built the kids version of the Boba Fett starship, we used the gravity tilting sort of cockpit seat, very similar to how they had done for like the amazing features they built into the fan level one, but like really simplified down for kid. So that was a really cool line to
But
work
still
on
that
with him.
fun aspect of interactivity.
Yeah, totally.
It's a bonus that, it doesn't have to be there. I
Yeah,
mean, to have
yep,
a functional toy, but it's just that
totally.
added level. I mean, is there anything process wise that you do it? And you're like, that's a Mark process. That's one I've clearly
Oh, I think
integrated.
yeah, when I go in, I'll definitely like build a spec the way he does. So I think process wise, it's like how you kick off a vehicle and the specifications that you write out for like what it's required to do. It's really inspired by my work with him. I think too, like when you build either a vehicle or a playset, I'm really invested in like let's make sure the figure fits, the figure sits right, the figure can sit in that chair. Actually, this guy, Boba Fett in his throne, we did a bunch of early like really rough choppy 3D printing just to make sure like the seat is the right height off the ground for the length of his shins. Like you can't take it for granted that a figure is going to perfectly sit in a chair or fit in a cockpit.
There's
You need to
nothing like
check, you
having
need
those
to
little
get your
dangling
hands on.
legs on the edge of a.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you don't want to dangle the legs up like a kiddie seat.
Yeah.
So
Oh, he's so cute in his throne. Look at him. He's having fun. But yeah, there's little moments in a display where you're like,
yeah,
because it does for me, it does bother a bit when you're like, that's not quite right. Like
yeah.
Palpatine's throne is something that is really weird and scaled across all the different iterations, six scale, all the
Hmm.
different versions. And it's always like, what is the definitive version of
Yeah.
a, a of a Palpatine throne to where he sits right and it seems fine and his arms rest correctly?
And that one has that piece that kind of arcs over the head. You don't want it to
Yeah,
knock
so
the
how much
head. It's got to be
headspace
high
is it? Are you
above.
like
Like, what's his
cramming him in
clearance?
there?
Yeah. But then once he's got like a hood, you have to build that into the clearance. There's so many things you check on figure development just to make sure it's all working together as like a system of play and display.
Yeah, or just lighting matches. Like what was an
Yeah.
actual color and what was set color because of lighting?
Oh my gosh. That's maybe one of the most intense because
Is
if
that
you look
trauma?
at
Is that
some of
trauma
the
that's
like,
now just
oh,
bubbling up?
you're getting me a little. You're getting me a little. Yeah, original trilogy, like often you have to really examine multiple pictures to say, okay, was that image yellowed? We want that to be the hero reference, but was that yellowed? What was that original color? And finding all of that reference and comparing it across to depict like what was true to color.
Is the
That's
jacket blue or
definitely
brown?
something we dig
What's
into. Oh, yeah, blue or brown or gold or
yeah, yeah, it was the original dress. Han's jacket
yeah,
was the original internet dress.
it was right before the dress. There was the Han jacket.
And people will not change from their childhood memories of what it should
Nope.
be.
Built-in nostalgia of what it should be for
But it
sure.
also shows the power of toys and these collectibles in people's imagination, that the
Yeah.
toy version becomes the reality.
It
of
does.
the definitive version of something to where people can be told
Yeah,
it was a brown jacket. It was actually, here's the jacket. It was a brown jacket. Like, but it's not. It's blue
yeah.
because
There's like a Mandela effect, like nostalgia kicks in, and you're like, no, but I played for hours with a toy that says it's this color.
and that is a firmly imprinted. You're not going to move me off that no matter what reality you present to me. It's a blue
Yep.
jacket. So how soon? So Beanie Babies was sort of the entry into collecting, but you had this friend connection to have access to Star
Hmm.
Wars toys. How quickly did you start to get your own? And what was that? Was that a process of trying to work at that? Like, listen, I understand you're gifting me these other toys, but kind of I would like these Star
Hmm.
Wars toys as well.
So I think probably two things. I would say lightsabers. So getting my own lightsaber and also just making anything into a lightsaber. You know, when you were a kid, any like cardboard roll, anything is a lightsaber. So it starts there with imagination and eventually you get your own real lightsaber. I think too, the second one would be like really video games. So the first thing that I think I was able to break out of a sort of a girls' toys wall with my parents was I was like, no, trust me, I need a Game Boy. And then it was, okay, the Game Boy, I've played with it for this many hours this year. I need an N64. So I think just absolutely convincing my parents that video gaming was so of interest to me was one of my first breakouts. And then playing just hours of video games. And so I think by the time that I got to Knights of the Old Republic, that drew me back into Star Wars through video gaming. And I was like, wait, I've always loved the Star Wars movies, but this video game is like really being a Jedi and you know, picking a path and living through this story of these characters. So definitely like played multiple times through Knights of the Old Republic. And I think really starting to buy more of my own Star Wars toys came around college. So diving into being like an adult toy collector started for me in college.
I like how your approach to collecting was design iterations. Like, I'm going to start here. This is a proof of concept. Then we're going to build
Yeah.
on that. And
Okay, now I have proven that I play all the time with my Game Boy.
now we can move on to the next stage. We know this is fundamentally sound.
Case in point, how many hours I spend on Tetris. Now I need Ocarina of Time. Yeah.
So was Tetris your first sort of game that you really hooked into?
Oh yeah. This is very, I'm gonna date myself, but black and white Game Boy, pixel Tetris, definitely where I started
All
in
the eye
video
strain.
gaming. Yeah. I was old enough to play again at other people's houses with like SNES. But really, my first console was Nintendo 64 when I was 13. So that was really good Christmas.
So was that how soon after you got the console did you get your first Zelda game?
Oh, it came with it.
Oh, so it was the version with Ocarina.
Hmm. I mean, what a Christmas. You get your first console and you get Ocarina of Time.
And that's your first
Everyone
couple of months,
must
sort of.
have, like, I feel like a lot of people must have a Christmas where they're like, it's never going to top that Christmas.
I mean, mine was probably the Star Wars Christmas of getting the Millennium Falcon as a
Oh.
kid. So, which is weird to think back on those because also you have that moment, and I don't know how much of this goes into the design process anymore because adult collectors are a lot of or who are partaking sadly of a lot of these things. But as a kid, you would have the joy of getting the thing like the Millennium Falcon, and then the
Hmm.
immediate realization as a young child that, oh, it's not all put together and the stickers aren't on it.
Hmm. Oh,
And
there's
you have that
assembly
like, just
required.
wait a minute. You have to, we can't, it's not quite perfect yet. You have to do this process to get to perfect.
Yep, and sometimes we really make an effort to make that easy on parents, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we have to fit it very disassembled in the box, and we're like, best
I,
wishes,
I'm
parents, on
I
Christmas
messed up
morning.
so many sticker applications by rushing to get those on.
Yep.
So many stickers stuck to fingers. It's like, oh, it's, and then you stare at that crooked sticker. That's the bane of my existence. Crooked stickers on things. And
I
GI
believe
Joe
it.
was the
I believe it.
worst because it had those clear stickers.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
It that now I'm just traumatizing myself all over again. Uh,
That's me and Gundam kits. When I build Gundam kits, I'll be in there with the like fine pen doing all of the black outlining, and then I'll get to the decals or like the water slides, and I'll be like, oh,
do you
good though. Like, does he need every decal?
water slides are like the ultimate just
They're really intense.
and it took a ridiculous amount of time for me to find out and understand that oh you can use tweezers to apply
Mm-hmm.
a sticker and it makes it so much easier than
Yep. To
stickers
get your
stuck to fingers.
snippers. I think they're called God hands, the snippers that are really good for Gundam kits. And then you have to get the fine lines, and then you realize no, tweezers have to pull this game together.
I mean, I've been doing customizing a figure, and I have a very shaky hand when it comes to fine details, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
paranoid about any time I have to paint something. But I decided to customize some figures, and Kate Sabaker at Tested had recommended the acrylic paint markers that had a
Mm-hmm.
super fine tip, and I'm like, oh, this actually makes this possible now for me to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this without feeling that I'm going to botch it up with a
dotting
paintbrush.
the dotting the I on like Dungeons and Dragons miniatures. That's the one that gets me like, okay, only one brush can do it. It's the brush that has like basically three bristles. And you could come in for the pupil on like a 1 inch miniature. Just like,
I'll
oh
watch Toy Polloy with his little pin on the top of a pencil and using the
mm-hmm.
pin top to do it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd still mess it up. It'd be on his cheek, you know, an eye highlight on a cheek, and suddenly it's all ruined for me. Do
Or
you?
you get the first eye perfect and then you have to do the second eye
Oh, and then you
because
got
you're
to go
never
back
gonna
and fix
measure
the
up.
first eye to match the second eye, and then you realize you should just start from the beginning again.
It's all
Uh,
over.
do you recall the first Star Wars toy that you bought yourself for yourself?
One of them is on my list.
Okay, so
So
we'll get to that.
maybe the last one in my Force 5. It's really one that I bought for myself in college because it was just too cool to walk past.
Do you going into your list, and this is an in the moment always with people how they rank their inclusions on the list.
Sure.
Does everything feel like it's firmly in the positions that you've assigned them for your top five?
Oh, let me
Or do
think
you
about
feel
that.
it's very
I
much in
didn't
their
rank
element?
them. I just put them in an order of like storytelling. So everything that I brought is Hasbro. Not all of it did I work on, but they're ones that just have a lot of meaning to me and like a story for how it felt.
So we're going to put
So
everything on
there,
a separate but equal plane, but they do have numbers attached because we're going to start then with your number. We're going to build to a one. So I want
okay,
you mentally to build to what would be absolutely
okay,
definitive, the last thing that you want to mention, which
okay.
means that we have a looser field of the first one that we're going to mention, which is in your number five
Sure.
spot. Do you have a
Well,
feeling
I'll
of what's in
start
the?
with my number five, with the
Okay.
one that I'm talking about that I picked up for myself. It's not a 3 3/4 figure. It's the only one. So this one, should I just jump in?
Yes. Let's
Okay.
go for it. Number five
So
on your
when I
list.
was in art school in college, we were like doing still lifes and drawings, and we had a toy, and I bought one of these for myself because it was just so freaking cool. It pulled me all the way back to the Star Wars story, and really is the first Star Wars toy that I bought for myself. Um, and that was Unleashed Boba Fett. So the Star Wars Unleashed line, they're not articulated figures. They were like extremely expressive statuettes. And this is like Boba Fett shooting downward into the Sarlacc pit to get away from the tentacle of it. And oh my god, in art school we like were doing drawings of it. It became this mascot of our little dorm group of friends, and it ended up at some point spray painted like wall sized in one of our like college housings. It was such the
Does
mascot
photos
because
exist of
he's
that wall mural?
somewhere. I'd have to dig deep for that. This tentacle coming around to grab the jetpack.
I mean, what's
So
amazing is that companies like Diamond are doing like their PVC dioramas now, but this was like the
definitely.
first iteration of having a statue that isn't so easily breakable. Like it's not a
It
resin
was.
statue.
It's plasticky, it's not going to fall off your shelf and crack. And it was just so expressive and so badass. So this, I think, is the first thing that I was like, well, I need to buy that for myself in college. And definitely that grew into returning and collecting Star Wars 3 3/4 figures even before I worked for Hasbro. So this one probably started the sickness, but this one
So
was
was it about
so
the
cool
pose?
and
Was it about it
expressive.
being Boba Fett? Was it about is Return of the Jedi
It's
like one
certainly
of your
always about
favorites?
being Boba Fett, but it was also just about the expression in it. It was, like we all like have this feeling like his story ends there, but it doesn't. It's like, oh no, he's Boba Fett. He could have defeated that Sarlacc, which, later in Disney Plus content, it's really cool to see him climb his way out of the Sarlacc.
Yeah, he's like the
Wasn't quite like
Batman of
this,
bounty hunters. You give him enough time, he'll
right?
figure it out.
Right? He may not have said much, but we always knew he was cool.
And then in Book of Boba Fett, we saw him have enough time to figure it out. He got out.
They're just gonna sit around and get digested.
Yeah, he's active. He's proactive. He'll do it.
Right? It's Boba Fett. He's equipped with the gear of Boba Fett, of this jetpack, this blaster. Yeah, that was so cool in college.
So, I mean, but there were other figures released in that, or statues released in that line. Were any of the other
Oh yeah.
ones appealing? Was that a gateway to more of them? Where like I got my Boba Fett,
Oh
that's the
yeah.
one I wanted, and I'm done.
Yeah, so freshman year of high school, I met my husband and we both started collecting toys together, which is good because he's still with me and we've never had to untangle our collections from each other. That would be the day. But no, we both started collecting and we ended up with a lot in the line of Unleashed and some really expressive poses in there. I think that Boba Fett that started it all still maybe remains the king for me, but yeah, the whole line was incredible, and the figure poses. You could tell that the Star Wars Hasbro team were really like feeling their expression of the characters in that line.
I'm just gonna throw it out in the universe, knowing that we need a Sarlacc pit playset at some point in the future, whenever it may come. We need to recreate that statue. I know there was a release many
It
years
would be
ago,
cool.
but have a nice
I
modern
can't make any
version.
promises, but I always love to
And I
hear
and
suggestions.
I'm never expecting them. But I'm saying personally, I would love to see a Sarlacc playset and what that could entail with its swappable beaks and whatever features that thing could have. Uh, so having that as sort of a gateway back in, how quickly did that lead to, well, I got to get more? Because that was sort of a golden period for a lot of things being available
It
across a
was.
lot of different films within, because that would have been 2005 was Unleashed 6.
Unleashed was 2003. So
So in
actually,
between
it was
Attack of the
released
Clones
earlier than
and
when I
Revenge of the
picked it
Sith.
up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I picked it up years later. But yeah, digging through toy shops and comic shops for like jumping into those toys. Yeah, it had been released a little bit earlier, but just finding it and just being enthralled by the
Like having that
action.
spark.
Yeah, that was that spark in college. So after that, definitely like found my group of nerd friends, my found nerd family, and started going to Star Wars convention, Star Wars Celebration. So before I ever worked for Hasbro, I was going to Star Wars Celebration just as an attendee, and was just captivated at Celebration by the amazing way that you could just see booths just filled with the Star Wars toys. And definitely, like, I think maybe at a celebration is where my journey of collecting 3 3/4 began. And that'll take me to my number 4 slot in the Force 5.
Let's go on to
So,
number 4.
all right. Number 4 is a droid that I had to complete at Star Wars Celebration. And that's my boy, HK-47. So HK-47 was a part of the Build a Droid program. And so we had like a couple of the pieces before we went to Star Wars Celebration, my at the time boyfriend, now husband, and me. But I was like, oh my gosh, there's these like tables where people are trading their Build a Droid parts. And I was like, what if we could like run around and finish our partial HK-47. I was just so excited because I had played hours of the video game. Again, the video game pulling me back into the Star Wars world, and then the Star Wars celebration just totally activating me. So this guy was so cool, and I was running around to booths,
And they were very
and
hard to complete at the time. I mean,
they
that
were hard.
for a
They
time
were really
when the
hard.
toys were readily available for the most part, that was
Mm-hmm.
on the lower end of the production
It was a little
scale.
difficult. Yeah. So I'm running around and I was going and hunting for something. And while we were apart, my husband made all the trades needed and brought me back my completed HK. And oh my gosh, it was so sweet. And it was so it's a total like this is a Star Wars romance in Silly Droid. But yeah, he completed the droid for me in trades while I wasn't looking, and it was just so cool. I just loved it. I mean, this guy in Knights of the Old Republic is the original like droid just filled with sass, and he's sort of an assassin droid, hunter killer HK, HK
With
47.
sass being a
But
vital component of the word assassin.
oh yeah, his sass his sass in the video game, like every time you ask him something and he's just like query and he calls you like meat bags.
So he's the original K2SO.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's got to be inspired a little bit by the personality of this droid. He was totally dangerous. So there I am, years later, and I've worked through an internship and then a temp position, and I get my full time position at Hasbro. And I still have always this sentimental memory of my HK droid just living with me. And at some point, someone is just like cleaning out their office and they're just throwing away a bunch of more completed HK units. And I was just like, are you going to throw those away? You're going to get rid of all those HK units? so so I end up with a bunch more HK units. I feel like everyone has this guy, the guy that's like, well, he's mostly completed, but I can't find the figures that had the arms. And I I just end up with this bouquet of my little HKs, and I was like, I could not walk away from them. I was like, oh my gosh, if you're gonna throw those away, can I have
Now I almost wish that was the bouquet at your wedding.
them?
Now, can you specify which one was the original one from Celebration?
There's my little first shot HK. I was gonna have that quirky guy too. The one that was my original, I think, is at work. So all of these plus one more.
Okay.
I've got one more HK, and my most sentimental one is at work with me.
Does it have an
Um,
identifying mark to where you can't get them confused?
just have to keep them separate because it is tough to identify. It is tough to identify. So this maybe was like my first accidental step into world building, or not world building, troop building. It might not have been though, because actually we have a lot of stormtroopers. So stormtroopers might have been the first, but this was my sentimental troop building.
How special
And
was it for
and I
that
just
figure
loved
to
them.
come back into the line recently and be
Yeah, I
available not
recently,
as a
that's where my
Build-A-Figure?
first shot comes from. Yeah. That's part of why I love to bring that back and that item where we just full released it with another figure. Another figure who is probably, yeah, let's call this one three, because I will just say you can see my love of KOTOR is strong. Knights of the Old Republic, it was absolutely incredible to work on this update of Darth Revan. So there's a lot of video game geek coming into my list, but after you spend hours, just hours in a video game with a character from the Star Wars universe, you feel a strong connection. I mean, the original movies build that connection, but the video game world and the way that you get to just spend hours with them, it builds its own additional like crazy connection. So I loved to work on this update of Darth Revan,
So,
and
so
it was
knowing it
just a
had
dream
been a
come true.
character available before in figure form,
Hmm.
and your love of the character and connection to it, what was
Yeah,
important to you in this version that you're like, these are the elements that I'm really going to focus on getting right for this?
sure. So absolutely bringing it into the latest articulation, and this Darth Revan has all of the latest. I believe he's got barbell hips. I think he got, wait, might have been ready. No, I think he's got barbell hips too. Well, let me check under your skirt real quick, Darth Revan. I think he's got barbell. He's moving pretty well. Things that were important to me was just to give him the latest that we had at the time for articulation, as well just to bring out all the detail in the armor. And you can see the torso of the armor here has a lot of metallic paint on it. If I can get my camera to focus. And just all of these sort of sculptural details that brought the character's costume to life, upgraded into high resolution and made amazing. He's always had these two lightsabers in our releases. So those were really fun to depict as well. This one has those sort of forks off the emitter. So this one was just a dream come true. I loved bringing a video game character like this to life in the line, and my sculptor did as well. And we just had so much fun
So
doing
having
this
that and
tattered.
HK together, was that like a wish fulfillment pack for you?
It was total video game Star Wars geek out moment for me.
So that was your gift to yourself. Was we're gonna this is gonna happen? It's gonna be perfect.
Well, we can't always make a toy only for ourselves. So I will say that. So things that I love definitely impact what I'll pitch, but we're always trying to pay attention to what the audience wants as well. If you do too much of just only making it for yourself, your, toy line becomes a little skewed. I'm also always trying to listen to what everybody else wants to.
But the
So,
good sort of intersection of that is
yeah.
products will get developed organically within that pipeline that you latch onto because it's something that you love, which
Yes. Yeah.
assuming is
The
one of the
intersection is
joys of
where
that
I'm like, yeah,
serendipity of
everybody else wants it too. Yeah, that's definitely why as well, like our fans do really great at building their own sort of wish lists and bracket, March Madness brackets and last figure standing votes that are fan run. And I always play along in the way of like, if I were an Emily that didn't work for Hasbro, this is what I would have voted. And then I keep that very secret. Don't want it to skew, like make people think that we're very skewed in the way that we develop things.
so without
Um,
telling me anything, in your mental checklist right now of things that you always wanted, how many boxes have been ticked off and how many are still left that are prominent in your mind?
Oh
And you don't have
man.
to be
The
specific,
other
you got to
fun
telling
part,
me.
yeah, the other fun part I would say from like things like our fans running their March Madness votes is I also know what's coming that they don't know about yet, since toys are developed like over a year in advance now, our timelines. And so I'll also be like, well, you can take this many of those and just call it
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Just always fun.
you should have
Yeah.
advanced
Then
that on your bracket because you're going to be so disappointed that other thing got eliminated.
yeah, and if it's like oh, it's coming out next month, like you feel a little bad. But no, but my own brackets, I feel like there's a solid between 5 and 7 that are my like absolute wish list. And I wish I could do these couple. But maybe around 5 that, we may not have in the line yet, but it's my deep cut wish.
So, of the ones that had been on your list, which ones have been realized? So,
Which ones
obviously,
have been
the HK
realized?
and the Revan must have been floating around there somewhere.
Goodness, I don't want to give too much away, but we've definitely already brought dreams to life for me. And we're always looking toward, what are the top requests by the fan groups. So I'll sorry to give you a generic question on that, but I don't want to give you too much.
But there are ones that have been definitely realized outside of that Revenant.
Yeah, there absolutely are dream come true figures that we've been able to make.
So going back to that sort of celebration run to build the HK droid
Hmm.
was how much of a gateway was that into the collecting? Like how swiftly did your collection grow? You got that
So I think
initial.
before we went to Celebration, we were like buying a couple figures here and there. I think that I'm a little deeper into my Star Wars love, and my husband was a little more super interested in Marvel at the time. But we were running around buying some 3 3/4 that we would see in the store. I remember from this era, oh gosh, there were some shelf warmers. This is about when Yarna, if you remember her, was like shelf warming in the Toys R Us. Sorry, Yarna. We all
which
care about
is
you, but
very,
you weren't
very,
super retail friendly.
but that's the kind of ultimate revenge a lot of those quote unquote peg warmers get is they're the ones that are ridiculously
You
priced
remember.
now.
Oh yeah, you'll remember Yarna. You'll remember her. No, but we were definitely like buying the figures. The 3 3/4 world was just being sculpted so amazingly, and we were buying up some like a lot of stormtroopers, thinking like maybe we want to build a stormtrooper army. And then when Celebration hit, oh my gosh, you could like dig and open bins. I've always been an opener, except for some rare ones that I'll keep it carded in my collection. Usually an opener and there were like open bins that you could dig through at Star Wars Celebration and just like convention deals you could make. And like, well, what if I bought five? Would you give me a deal? And then, oh my God, it's a slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope.
How many figures do you estimate that you got at that celebration in total?
Oh man, that's been a while. That's been a good while. Probably would come home with like over a gallon bag of toys.
To see you like your gallon bag of Lucy's at
Yeah,
TSA.
of
Just
loose steals. Yeah. I still have so many from that era that are amazing.
and now how I mean your display right now is very curated and
Yeah.
certainly not the mural the accumulation of disparate things that's behind me right now. Uh
This
how
is this is the clean wall. You don't
oh,
know.
so
No, there's an
so
absolute
what is your sort of ethos of presentation for your collection?
sure. So I would say that I love to tell stories. And I think probably the top item for that, I see one in your room as well, was when I got to work on the Jabba throne room. So Boba Fett's throne room was really stars to go with the Disney Plus content. But that was so cool to build the whole room and then get to fill it out. And I think I get such joy from building our sort of diorama play sets. Over here, I've got our recent Moff Gideon's light cruiser hallway. There's a lot of
Oh,
wreckage of dark
let's
troopers
see.
up there.
You mean this?
That one, yeah.
That was a
Well, that
holiday
one was
gift from a good
really
friend of
fun
mine that just
too.
arrived the other day. So
Oh, nice! I hope you enjoy it. So I do love when I get to tell a sort of diorama story. I also love, I think it's up there. You might catch. Maybe I can lift my camera. A certain mural collection from a certain ghost that should be arriving
I
on
just got
people's
a shipping
doorsteps around
notification
now.
before we recorded today. So
Yeah. So those are really cool, sort of complete collection in their card backs. And again, I'm not always an opener, or I mean, I'm not always a keep it closed. I'm usually an opener. I'm usually let it breathe. But those came together so amazing from the packaging team with the collection of card backs that looks like the mural. So that one I love to display.
now when
What's
you
down here?
open, do you preserve the packaging?
Nah.
So
Rip.
you're a Steve. You're a Steve Evans.
Yeah.
You're brutally tear it, toss it.
Oh yeah. Brutal tear. Brutal tear it off that
See,
card.
for me
Let's
as
get
a
that
kid,
toy.
my big thing was the card backs
Oh
and
yeah.
wanting to pursue because that was part of the sort of the that was part of the figure where those
Yeah,
card
for sure.
backs. So and anyone who's watched my videos will see the meticulous way in which I have found.
You do like exacto at the bottom edge.
So I traditionally would do a sort of I will use this letter opener and do a sort of lift around the edge and then do an
Mm.
internal. But then I thought, I wonder if I used a heat gun, could I get a cleaner lift of the plastic by heating the underside and then using
Oh,
this
how'd it work?
to lift it off? It is about 90% effective in
Oh,
removing the
nice.
bubble
Nice.
without. I mean, there's places where the glue has really gripped on to where it's just going
Yeah.
to tear a little away, but it is a lot better than the sort of tear circle that you would get. So
Nice, nice
that
tactic.
is the sad way that I preserved my cards is taking the
Does it
time.
ever like ripple the card paper?
Uh, that doesn't on the thicker cardstock.
Yeah,
Uh,
cool.
the
Good.
so like the retro collection when it was like the super thin for a while, you would get a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a ripple, but the thing I found it was never enough. It would warp. I would say it's not a ripple. It would warp the card, but it wouldn't affect the artwork badly enough to
Oh,
where
nice, nice.
in storage,
Usually like
if they're
card
compressed
book
with a
press
bunch of
it.
other cards, it's gonna flatten. It's gonna be
Yeah,
fine.
flatten it up.
So it's not
Good.
and you're preserving the artwork more than
Hmm.
otherwise. So that is the thing that I that I focus on with, with my opening is preserving the card backs.
I
What is
love
your
it.
threshold for keeping something in package? Is it just the sort
Oh
of
gosh,
design?
it's a sentimental few because I would say that I have a full closet storage system full of loose figures. And so really the stuff on this wall is some of the minimal kept in card. This one's like a collection of like so many troopers, a variety of some of the most interesting like clone troopers, arc troopers throughout what we've made. And I do love the way that the clones all look together. So it's like working through like a system or a matching sort of theme. And over here, I think there's some that are sort of from that world of Mandoverse that have been maintained on the cards. But quite a lot gets ripped open in this house.
Do you what was the first product you worked on? Does not have to be Star Wars, but the first product at Hasbro.
Absolutely. So I've been with Hasbro 15 years. And so when
Does it
I
feel like
first
15
joined,
years?
um, yeah, it feels like 15. It feels like, well, I mean, what's really fun about Hasbro is it's large enough that you get to work on so many different things. So I feel like I've had lots of little jobs within my job. And so when I started out, I was on girls' toys and I won my way into Hasbro through an internship competition. And they passed my portfolio to the VP at the time of the girls' toys line and got in for an internship, and it was so exciting and so cool. And so really my first line that I worked on was strawberry shortcake. So
And that was the big return
definitely,
for that, wasn't it, at the time?
yeah, at the time. So the team was developing the strawberry house, the sort of follow up to the berry happy home. And I got to jump in and build some of the furniture and the extra outfits for strawberry. And then I think my second item in the line, so my first had a hand in it was the release of the strawberry shortcake house. And then my first fully developed item was the strawberry dolls going into these little vinyl berry purses that were like transparent and printed with like cool graphics on the vinyl. And I think those came out like an end cap at Target. And then I got to see my first like I built this whole toy moment in the store with that one. So super loved seeing a toy that you made come to life. I had just definitely been this very shy kid that loved to draw, and now the drawings like come alive and it's physical and it's there, and the drawing became a thing. So that was super magical moment when I was working on Strawberry Shortcake.
So what was in your portfolio? Do you remember the
Oh,
pieces that were in there?
so I went to Columbus College of Art and Design. And so in my portfolio, it was very stuffed with like I wanted to do character creation for video games, and I was taking courses on comic book art layout. So, and how to ink for comic book art, and all that kind of character design and inking and stuff that went into that. And then when I did the competition, that actually was how I got into Hasbro. You had to sculpt an action figure, and at the in the time, ZBrush wasn't around yet. Digital techniques were not around yet. So I hand sculpted my own action figure in wax, which is how the original toys used to be made. They Hasbro came and they ran their competition and provided like some little separate joints that you could build into your wax figure. I did like a pirate girl, and then I did all of her turnaround art. And the team was like, okay, you've got like maybe the second best sculpted figure, but like we're really interested in this art you drew. Can we pass your portfolio to the design team? And I was like, yeah. And
No, I refuse. That
meanwhile,
is for your eyes
yes,
only.
please
You had
do.
to be here.
Please do. And then, meanwhile, first best sculpted figure was my husband's. So we met in college, and so I think they told like the people running participating in the contest, like you need to have like at least 12 points of or at least seven. I don't remember, but somewhere between points of articulation. And he built in 23, I think was the number. He just went nuts sculpting. And so he's a great action figure sculptor. And yeah, that was kind of both of our origin points was that contest.
Do you still have your wax figures?
No, I don't know that it's made it through many moves. I don't know if it's made it. He might he might still have his. We got photos. Got photos.
So do you still entertain ideas about wholesale, scratch up character design of original characters? Is that still in
I don't
your
know that I long to go back to 3D, but I still love 3D. I was definitely more illustration focused, but having some fun during the contest. 2D still clicks for me, but
or even those, I mean, the characters you designed for that, do they still hold a special place? Because that was obviously, something you loved enough to want to design it. So
yeah, Blue Bonnie, my pirate girl and her crew. I should return to it and give it an update,
has
fresh
she has
update.
she
Now
made
that
it
I
into anything else or aspects of any of that made it into
no,
anything?
no. Well, often I've worked on, brands where we are the licensee, so, like Star Wars. I'm not the inventor of a Luke Skywalker. That would be Lucasfilm, and we get to create honoring and authentic interpretations of those characters that people fall in love with. Sometimes I have worked on Hasbro owned brands. It's a very different process between the two, but yeah, I'm not usually able to like build my own character in quite as much as that, like create a whole
So
new
Blue
brand.
Bonnie is still
Didn't have
floating out
pitches.
there for you to
Blue Bonnie, someday I'll have to reinterpret her
graphic
little
novel,
pirate line.
your debut graphic novel.
Yeah.
And all that art still exists, right? You still have the
Oh,
art
for
side of the
sure. For sure.
portfolio.
Yeah. I'm
Uh,
sure I would cringe now to look back on what college Emily thought needed to go into a toy turnaround.
well, now I hope this
But
inspires you after our conversation to open up the portfolio and go, you know what? No, this is actually pretty good.
brush that off. Yeah.
She's back. The pirate's back.
hmm
It's a
Yep.
time for pirates. It's a good air right now. There's
Pirates are so hot right now. Actually,
so
I'm loving them in Skeleton Crew.
the so we have two left on your
hmm
list. Do you have, before we go to a definitive one, that no matter what, this would be your top choice?
Mm, yeah. Okay. I've chosen one.
Okay. So your number two, who is the runner up, now knows it's not as special as number one.
I'm sorry, buddy. Okay. Number two,
Your
I
number two is.
absolutely love um, is Darth Vader, Dark Times. So, Darth Vader was incredible to get to build a fully new figure for. Just such an iconic character. And I think what I really loved was sculpting every little detail of him, and then the way the fans have kind of declared it like a definitive. So as soon as I say this, they're going to be like, "No, Emily needs this." But
No, fans aren't
I
like
just
that. They wouldn't do that.
but I loved working on this guy with my sculptor. And I loved the way that we were able to just bring every new trick in the bag to such a classic character. So this one brings me back because every time still that my dad and I have a phone call, yes, yes. So every time my dad calls me, he goes, daughter. To this day, if your dad is not Darth Vader in your
And does he have one of your Dark Times Vaders? Have you gifted him a
He
Dark Times
does. He
Vader?
does. Yeah, I've gifted my parents a couple of my toys, and this one is definitely a cherished one. So this one's shout out to dad. Absolutely watching Star Wars on the couch with him, and just like so amazing to get to update a character like this, update a classic, update a powerhouse like this. We also got to do like a bunch of extra hands for Darth Vader in this one, and all of his, poses and stuff.
I mean, that's
So
not a
that
thing
that
we
was
see
just a
often
blast.
in the line, the swappable
It's not,
limbs thing.
yeah,
So that's always great when that. The thing I am most impressed with the Dark Times, which is the weirdest thing, but we've seen so many iterations of this character that I can appreciate it, is the the drape of the cape. Like
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
first one that really feels that it got a natural
heavy,
drape.
like a heavy,
Yeah,
yeah,
but a heavy with the design remaining intact within it. Like it's not just a heavy
mm-hmm,
thing that like it falls the trying to think of the pleating. The pleating of it
mm-hmm,
is great.
yeah,
And for me, it's an element like that to have that captured because that can make a figure feel like a figure, like a
for
toy.
sure.
And I'm not using a toy as a pejorative either. I don't want people to
Yeah.
think that I'm
Sometimes soft goods isn't going to feel right at this scale because it is just so small. Other times, though, it's going to let your figure move. The cape is going to get out of the way while your figure does a dramatic pose. So it's such a case by case basis for us when to do soft goods.
I mean, it's also great that I get to pose him next to my waffle emperor.
Why's he got waffles? It's amazing.
That's the it came with a Leslie Nope action figure. And I thought, you know what? No, it seems like he
Oh
would be
my
in a
gosh.
buffet line
Oh, he would. He would.
walking with his waffle. The things we choose to do
I love it.
with our
I
action
love it.
figures. So Vader, I can't wait to find out what your number one is because for it to be to pip out Vader.
I know, I know. He might be the better figure, but this one's really sentimental. So my number one comes straight from a place of fandom, and again, all the way back to college. And when I was in college, we went to a certain movie that was the Clone Wars movie, and we're just like absolutely amazed that Clone Wars was on the big screen. And years later, Lucasfilm came around to finish that with Clone Wars season 7. And so I was absolutely thrilled to get to work on Ahsoka Mandalore. That's the BC-202, and just bring the final version of Ahsoka in her Clone Wars finale, season 7. Yes, absolutely loved her. I might have the wrong lightsabers on. They should be blue for that era.
You've made the
This is digging.
choice.
This
No,
is my fault
you've
for
made a
digging around the
choice.
toy box, fishing around in my toy box. But yeah, she needs the blue. But I absolutely love Ahsoka, and I will say, like in college when we went to see the Clone Wars movie, I didn't hear as much right away. It was a lot of nicknames, Fly
Listen, we're
Guy
getting
and
Rada the Hutt back
Stinky.
supposedly.
I know,
So
I know.
what a time we
So
live in.
it was a lot of nicknames, but what I loved about Ahsoka was just the amazing journey that she went on and seeing her continue to grow up through the Clone Wars series and just have her hero's journey. It was incredible. So I worked on this one with an awesome sculptor, Paul Bennett, who just dug completely into the details. I felt too like this one like really captured the proportion of a female character so well versus none of the others had been terrible, but this one was like peak performance on like a
Without
female
the figure
figure.
feeling fragile as far
Yeah,
as like because you worry when you start to have smaller joints on that to capture the proportions correctly, like, oh, is this gonna break if I'm trying to do a pose? But I mean, this is a solid
just
realization
perfect
of
proportions. Yeah, solid realization. Absolutely loved working on that one. So yeah, I've just been a total Ahsoka geek. At one point, at another Star Wars celebration years later, I did get to meet Ashley Eckstein, who was her voice actor through the Clone Wars series, and just absolutely geeked out. So yeah, that's just my real like stepping outside of working for Hasbro. That was just my total fandom
and what a
just
golden
to
age to be on the line as far
yeah
as being an Ahsoka fan.
Oh, I know, because I've gotten to make more Ahsokas. This is Disney Plus Ahsoka, Rosario Dawson. So I've been able to work on just awesome versions of one of my favorite characters. So I think that one took the cake for me. And just like, here I am making an Ahsoka toy, working for Hasbro. I'm so excited right now.
The as far as characters like that, I mean, are there any other ones that hold special places for you and the ones that you've worked on?
I also am a total fan of Obi-Wan Kenobi, all the way through from original trilogy to his own
But if you
show.
had to
So it's
pick
been so
one, if you had
cool.
to pick one version of Kenobi, what is your absolute favorite version?
Episode three, probably episode three Kenobi.
So not
So
the models,
I would
not
call that one my that's probably my Star Wars crush.
and then to have again a golden age of him coming back and getting to
Totally.
work on. So the one thing about it must be unique about sort of an evergreen license like this that spans so much time periods and how things can be woven back in is you really can't write off, oh, I'll never get to work on
Yeah.
that character because a lot of
Well, I think
franchises go
there's
away.
so much thick nostalgia that I feel like, and I say this often to fans when they're like, "What is my favorite going to get made?" I'll say, "You know what? The doors are never closed." Honestly, too, we hear fans out on older picks that they just have a continued love for. So we definitely are listening, and I think the door's never closed. We just need to definitely hear that more people than one are interested in it. But
Well, yeah, I mean, fans are not known for patience, and there is an enthusiasm with it, and also just the sort of the realistic, pragmatic approach to how the industry has to work. You can't
yeah,
have 400 figures released in a year. That's just not going to happen. So everything can't happen at once. And
right,
patience is
right.
very hard, but there are so many figures that people have gotten that we're on their list of forever. We need
I hope
this.
so.
And
I
then they're
hope so.
done. And then it's like, wait, what? They did it? They did the thing that I
What's my
was.
next campaign?
Yeah. Yeah, but they'll never do this.
They would never.
I mean, how often do you hear that and you just have to internally chuckle and go, oh, you sweet summer child. If you could just relax, it'll all be okay.
Well, we just dropped some amazing three packs for Gift the Galaxy that just came out. And I know that they've been like, they aren't even going to listen to us for Gift the Galaxy. I've been like, patience, young one. Three packs are coming.
They hate us. I love how all sides think they're the ones that are the least favorite child.
Oh,
Well, they're
we
giving
really
all the
love them
love to
all.
Black Series. Oh no, they're giving all the love to TVC, or they're giving. Just relax. Just it's okay. They're toys. You're supposed to enjoy this. The amount of stress within the community.
Yeah. We
It's like
love all Star Wars toy fans. We absolutely do. I would say that TVC also shares some of its budget with things like, vehicles and play sets, and is not purely only action figures. So we share love in that way too.
I like how, how some people have this opinion. Well, they're just spiting us now. Like, no, I no, they're not. They're not developing a line to spite you. It's not happening that way. Relax. It's gonna be okay. You'll get your figures.
Certainly
Uh,
would never. I love toy fans and I love their passion. And I was right where you guys are, just fishing through toy bins at a toy show, collecting and collecting. And I still, that's still in me.
yeah. I mean, we have a future where there's gonna be Tonica sister figures,
Yeah,
and that was
absolutely.
inconceivable to so many, and a
I
dream.
just looked at their first shot. It's going to be good, guys.
So it's a never say never. I look at with all these
hmm
things. So it's a delight to see when these things do arrive, and that Jabba playset as a child who saw Return of the Jedi in
It
theaters
is.
and had a definitive childhood trauma of fearing when walking
Scarred
into a bathroom,
forever.
having to open the shower curtain for fear that Jabba was hiding behind it because of
Oh,
that curtain reveal at night with Leia and Han after he's unfrozen. It's like, Maybe Jabba's
Mhm.
back there. I got to check behind the curtain.
Maybe he's right there.
To have that playset is a remarkable thing, and to have that Jabba. Which Jabba is that the on your throne, your Jabba throne? Which version of Jabba is that?
He's a much older Jabba.
Is that
I
the
need to bring in my
2010?
final production version of the new Jabba set that we put out, then he'll get replaced. Sorry.
I just wanted to make my eye. I was like, that looks like the that Walmart one that came out, the sticky one.
Yeah, he's a cheaper older one. Yeah, he'll
They're
get
all
changed out.
wonderful in their own way. You have the tongue out Jabba, you have the spitting
Uh,
Jabba. You can rotate your Jabbas now. Different
I do.
Jabbas for different days of the week. You can swap
A
them
new
out.
Jabba's coming. I don't know if you can see to the side the Rancor. There it is.
Oh,
He's like got a Gamorrean guard that he's about to munch on.
and
He's ready
that's
for a
is that
snack.
the modern? That's the I don't have any of the modern Rancor, sadly.
That's
So
the last release Rancor. Yeah, for our scale.
and the thing is, I've learned to be very zen about it. Like, maybe I'll wait on the ridiculous eBay price because you never know where things are going to go. So fingers crossed on that. I'm looking at, you can see, well, they kind of lit up back poorly. The Max Rebo band back there, and
Oh, nice. I've
everyone
got a Rebo band. Yeah.
straining about that. And then I look at it and go, they're not really to scale as to how the Rebo band would be. So if we're just patient, we can all hope for the best on all of these things. Is there any
Rebellions are built on hope.
that should be the motto for the Star Wars collecting in general?
Toy lines are built on hope too.
Steve Evans, your shop with your shirts and your stickers, add that. That needs to be available now.
Toy lines are built on hope. I can see the shit.
So if it wasn't Star Wars, I mean, what thing is closest to your heart that you would be a dream toy line to have
Oh
that
my
you haven't
gosh,
seen?
that's a broad one. I mean, you've heard me say there's only one video game that I have a tattoo of, and it's not Lord of the Rings. It's Legend of Zelda.
So let's
Lord of the
talk
Rings is
Zelda.
super close to my heart too.
Let's talk Zelda, which
Fantasy,
hasn't
and
had a lot of figure. There's been some figures that have come out in recent years, but if you had your druthers of your ultimate figure you would want, meaning you get to choose because there's been a lot of different versions of Link, of Zelda, of all of these characters. What's your definitive figure you'd want and the environment slash playset you would want with them?
all right, total daydreaming mode. It's rare toys of Zelda, but there've been more in recent years from imports. But I feel like we haven't had enough of Ganondorf. So, like Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf, maybe Majora's Mask, Skull Kid, like some of those good villains from the start or from the Legend of Zelda universe.
So what masks need to come with the Skull Kid?
Every mask.
But
Mask.
well, you can't have what are the I mean there's going to be
You
variants.
could
So
just need the
what's
mask guy with his big backpack of every mask.
he's the convention exclusive. He's
Oh yeah.
but you
No,
got to
that's easy to
pick.
say now. Later on, you gotta work out your costs, but
So you got
just
so let's say
everything.
the convention exclusive is every mask, but you have a retail. What are the masks you're picking that have to
Oh
be?
man.
We'll give you three. Three are your pack in.
Okay. Well, it's got to come with Majora's Mask in the title of the game. And I think I always liked Deku Mask and Zora Mask. Yeah, those were really good ones.
And what scale for your Zelda?
Oh, what scale? I'll say 3 3/4. We love it. Also, I can fit more.
So then that's the
Shelves
last
would
thing
not
is
be as full.
what's the play set?
What's the play set? Majora's Mask. It can't be the moon, right? It's just the floor.
Well, that would be the equivalent of like a HasLab, right?
Can't be a big angry moon. Can you picture it? Just the surface of the moon
But
with
I
the
like that as a
angry
display
face.
option now. Like, I mean, what is there a definitive Zelda environment for you? Is it like
A
Hyrule
definitive Zelda
Castle? Is it a
environment.
dungeon? Is it?
Well, I'll pull back out of Majora's Mask and go to Ocarina of Time. Like pulling the Master Sword out of the Temple of Time, incredible. And the time jump that happens, it's not the best. Like I will say when I design a playset for Star Wars, I like to design one where you can display a lot of characters or you can build a great battle scene. So those are two of my tenets for designing like a playset. So that's not really answering either of those. Really, it's Link on a solo mission. So it's more maybe that's more of like a small display piece, but I don't know. It might take you to more of the temples and their puzzles if you were looking for something with a little more action. But
Well, I
that's
mean,
fun to
how
think about
important are play features to you? Because that's certainly like, talking about how like Mark Boudreau would design. That was like a large component
for
of design
sure.
in that age was what's the play feature? What's the interactive thing?
Absolutely. So play features are something that I dive into more for the kids' lines. I got to do the Jedi Temple playset that was for our Star Wars preschool line, the Young Jedi Adventures. So that one was really fun, and I got to do some great play features there. I built in like a sliding floor piece that sort of makes it look like your figure is using the Force because there's two connected floor platforms, and so if you stack up like a sort of pillar of bricks here, and then you slide your character, these topple like you force push them. So that was my favorite play feature that I got to build into our preschool line. But yeah, like definitely is more of a focus for the kid world.
Is it so? It's the last question on the Zelda. What play feature would you want in a Zelda display?
Mm, what play feature? Um, well, gosh, when you pull out the Master Sword, it always sort of glows and has a sound effect. So, ba, ba, ba,
Well, now I want interactive chess too.
of course, yeah, you got to find the key to the boss's room.
Well, fingers crossed we get this line eventually. Are there any things
It's not our license, but that's fun to dream about.
no one ever knows where licenses are going to go in the future. So anything could happen in this weird toy world. Are there any figures or items that didn't quite make your list today that are like honorable mentions that are still important to you that you love, but
I'll show a funny one. This is a product that did not make it to production and probably won't, but it's just a crazy little exploration we did. At one point, we were like, what if we took a Chewbacca and we flocked him? So he's got the soft, fuzzy flocking all over. And that makes him Chewflaka. There's only one because we tried it. We thought we were being crazy, and we were being crazy, and then we didn't take that one into production. So Chewflaka might never see the light. Mostly because when you flock, you need to downgrade to much simpler articulation because the flock moves against blocking. And it probably wouldn't work on a highly articulated figure, but we were just going a little nuts. We were just
I
having a little
love right
fun.
now that somewhere Robo is having a visceral reaction against the idea of a flocked
I know,
Chewbacca because it
everybody probably
combines
hated
one of
it.
his favorite things and one of his least favorite things.
Least favorite. I understand it. Some people don't love it. Some people don't love flocking. There's only one Chewflaka
But
because
that
we
looks
we
incredible.
we came to our senses. We came to our senses on that crazy
I think
exploration.
quite the opposite. I think that is a dream that now that we know it's such a shame that that could not. But who knows? Maybe you'll have an entire flocked line. Maybe we'll have a flocked Obi-Wan Kenobi. We'll have a beard
I
flocking. It's
don't
the
know
way to
that our
go.
vintage collection fans would ever trade their amazing articulation for the flocking. So I'm
Oh,
not
they
sure
don't
that
care
he's
about
right.
articulation. They don't mention it at
Oh,
all, ever.
articulation. We never hear about that.
Uh, this has been a real delight to have you on. Thank you for doing this. I hope it's been not
Absolutely.
painful to have to choose favorites. But
Been super fun. Thank you for inviting me on. And I always love to talk toys. And we
you've
love
inspired
our
me
toy
to
fans.
dive back into Tears of the Kingdom and work
I gotta
towards
finish
that
it.
999ing all of all of the inventory.
Every single piece. Now that I'm on holiday break, I think that might be where I head to.
It's a real fun Zen exercise just to go in there and try and max out all of that. Or when
I'll
you've
just
done,
have to convince myself to put down like Wukong and all the other ones I'm playing and put my emphasis back on Legend of Zelda.
I mean, but there's something about diving into that world and
There is.
just running across that map
Yeah.
is
And
just
it
so much fun.
tracing your line that you ran on. Like really fun part.
I'll share with you the screen cap I took of my is it Hero's Path, I think is what they call it, the Hero's Path of Breath of the Wild, because it is ridiculous. Like it's
Extreme.
basically you can't see a map. It's,
Amazing.
I
Amazing.
won't share with you
Completionist
the hours of
explorers.
playtime that it shows.
Completionist explorers unite. I love it.
This has been a joy. Where should people find you online at this point in this weird social landscape that we're
Sure.
all in?
In this weird social landscape, you can find me on Instagram at Miss Melon on account of my name sounds so much like Cantelupe. And yeah, that's probably the best reach to reach me.
Everyone go follow that account and also pick up all of the wonderful things that you've seen featured today and all the stuff in the future that we don't know about that's coming up that's going to be just as much fun and incredible. You can tell by the sly devilish twinkle in her eye right now that there's so much she's thinking
There's
of as I
some
said that
fun
line.
ones. There's some fun
uh
stuff coming.
and we have a cantina to look forward to as well,
Yeah.
so
And a
that
ghost to go unbox.
it's going to be hard enough to get it in the house, let alone unbox it. Once I saw the weight on that thing, I was like, oh, what? Okay, well, this is going to be it's going to be a journey. Maybe I'll stack it on top of the Millennium Falcon and just have like a stackable display.
I think our team joked that the package is like about the size of like your dishwasher. So just get rid of that. Just put
Yeah,
wash those dishes by hand and just slide that right on into your kitchen.
I mean, you're basically creating coffee tables now.
Right.
It's and I love it, and I'm here for it. Hopefully, everyone, if you enjoy watching this, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Ken Plume. That'd be swell. That'd be nice. That's a thing that people can do if they want to see more of these. There's a lot of great guests like Emily coming up. This is so much. Just take a look. You can follow me on all the socials. All the links are there. I am all over the place except for the one place which no one is in that place anymore. So don't go to that place. Ignore that one. Go to all the other ones. And thank you for watching. And thank you for being here. And I'll see you all soon. So bye, everybody.
Bye.